Let's bring in Jessica Tarlov, a Democratic strategist, and Ron Christie, former special assistant to President George W. Bush. Ron, what do you expect from the RNC platform meetings that are happening today?
Well, good morning, Sandra. I think it's going to be a very interesting time. The RNC is very concerned about the tenor and the tone of this campaign. They're very concerned about the presumptive nominee, Donald Trump. And so they've come out, they're out a week early, as Peter just mentioned, to have the opportunity to chat and to see where do we stand as a party. Now, where I look at this, what I find very interesting is that the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, has put something forth called A Better Way, a six-part plan on trade as it relates to all sorts of social issues, as well as budget entitlement reform. And that clashes specifically with where Mr. Trump is, as Peter mentions, of Paul Ryan's a free trader. A lot of the folks in the House Republican caucus are free traders. Mr. Trump is not. How do Republicans coalesce around their presumptive nominee? This will be very interesting to watch.
You know, some of the headlines this morning, Jessica, are the RNC softening their tone heading into this convention. And as Peter Ducey pointed out in his report, wow, how different the nominee is this time around for the party.
Absolutely different. And I think there's a lot of exciting conversations going on the right. I think about social issues. You know, there's a lot of talk about Republicans needing to, expand the tent or whatever the right way to say that is. And when you're losing millennials to Hillary Clinton, when he's not particularly polling well with African Americans, with Latinos, there should be a move towards softening a lot of the stances that were in the 2012 platform and certainly going back. So I think that that's important. I think Ron is completely correct that this trade talk is going to be interesting, as the Republican Party was always the party of free trade, and now you have an anti-free trade nominee. So we'll see where he comes down there. Though I seem to recall Trump kind of softening his tone about that, saying, well, I'm not anti-trade, I just want better deals, whatever that means, and that's his critique of TPP at this point.
In that speech he gave on trade, even though he went through what he would do with NAFTA, how he feels about TPP, Ron, at least he didn't talk about a 45% tariff on imported Chinese goods, and at least he didn't talk about targeting U.S. companies that send jobs to Mexico. But can the Republicans really have it both ways on trade and even some of these social issues?
Good morning, Dagan. No, I don't think we can. I think the Republican Party has long stood for being the party of free trade, has long stood for having really strong partnerships with our friends abroad. Look at the Brexit vote. This gives us a great opportunity to solidify our trade not only with Great Britain, but with Europe. So a lot of people say that this is a bad time for Europe, a bad time for Great Britain, but I say this is a great opportunity for the United States to extend our reach. But Donald Trump has to have a more coherent, a more cohesive policy, not only on trade, but on a lot of the issues that vex us. Health care, entitlement reform, so many issues that are out there that at this point he has not really articulated a clear policy platform, which is why, Sandra, I think going into this week, we're in a good spot as Republicans to say, who are we and what do we really stand for?
And what does that look like come convention time?
I agree with Ron, but I have to say I think that this is really insider baseball. I think the average Republican voting probably doesn't know what was in the party platform of 2012. And I think people are voting based on the candidates, right? They're voting, no matter how many times people in the primaries pointed out Trump's rather unorthodox positions for the Republican Party, the Republican primary electorate still voted him in. So I think this is a really important but super inside baseball discussion.
All right, well, we got to get you in here because we're talking vice presidential speculation. It is certainly heating up on both sides of the aisle. Donald Trump and New Jersey Governor Christie will campaign in Virginia today. We know who are top possible running mates for Donald Trump. He's meeting with Christie. Hillary Clinton, wow, is the speculation all over the map there. But it seems like it's really narrowing on the Trump side.
It could be. He's talked about a lot of people. Mike Pence, you mentioned, pretty good record as governor there, although he, in Indiana, although he bobbled the religious liberty thing. You know, you mentioned one name that hasn't come up, but you were just talking about Mary Fallon, Oklahoma. I think that's somebody that Trump ought to be looking at, and maybe he is.
Well, I think that has been on the short list for some time now.
Yeah, General Flynn also on the short list, someone that I worked with in government who's incredibly impressive. Although I still think that Trump is like sort of leading us all down a rabbit chase.
And it's going to be his daughter.
Or Omarosa.
He could do worse, by the way.
Yes, he could do worse. I think she is probably the best thing about him right now.
But I expect Donald Trump to ride into the convention on an elephant, literally, and have the most out-of-the-box pick. I mean, I'm going to be disappointed if it's Mike Pence. Not
Jessica, did you just suggest that he could put his daughter Ivanka Trump on his ticket?
I did suggest it, and I've read other people who are credible who've said that this could happen. I mean, it could. I mean, it would be interesting. I think a double Trump ticket is wholly frightening, but it could happen.
And what are the chances? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think she is the brightest of his advisors. Now, that may be kind of a low bar.
She seems to be responsible usually for the cooling. You know, when he steps back, it seems to be because Ivanka said, you really need to back off this with the Judge Kirill comments. A lot of people, obviously, in the entire media and the country.
Newt Gingrich has always been up there, too, right? So, I mean, Newt Gingrich, whenever he's asked about it, he looks like he would just love the job.
Give me a job.
Yeah, I think that at this point, and I'm not sure it's going to happen, maybe Donald Trump needs to pick somebody who isn't an older white guy. I don't know. In terms
that's why I think Mary Fallon.
Exactly.
That's what, to James's point, that he has some deficits in terms of these groups of voters that he needs to woo and woo quickly.
Well, we talked about the missed
it.
opportunity with Susana Martinez when he went after her, because it's not only a female governor, he was the first Latina Republican governor, and he certainly burned that bridge. But Mary Fallon and also Jan Brewer, who's been a terrific surrogate for him, is a possibility.
All right, now we talked about Trump's VP picks, but let's talk Hillary Clinton here for a second. Is it going to be Elizabeth Warren? Could you imagine?
I think that would be real.
Ron, go ahead.
Sign of weakness if she does that.
Elizabeth Warren to Hillary Clinton is Chris Christie to Donald Trump, I think. That's why it's too much of the same.
I think that's exactly right. And we also know that behind the scenes, Hillary Clinton is a little bit threatened by the Warren wing of the party. I mean, she's tried to pivot over. She's tried to, get a lot of the Bernie sympathizers. But in the end, I think once we get really into the general election, she's going to tack a lot more to the center, and that is going to turn off a lot of the people who are independents or conservatives who might want to vote for Secretary of State Clinton.
And by the way, guys, security, safety is going to be just huge. Come the RNC and the DNC, we know that 50,000 people are expected to convene on Cleveland. What an immense task that they have in front of them.
To add to that, because there was an ACLU lawsuit, and so the organizers in Cleveland agreed just some weeks ago to expand the protest area. And so now it basically gives them an even bigger area, a larger area to protect, which raises certainly safety issues, but also financial ones.
Most of us will be there, and I can imagine we're going to need to be everywhere like 3 hours early. Obviously, protests expected, etc. All right, Jessica Tarlov and Ron Christie, thank you so much.